This is how to solve a quadratic by completing the square. When I look at this quadratic and start to think about factoring it, I'm looking for things that multiply to be negative 13 but add to be 4, and those aren't numbers that I am familiar with. So I then decide I'm going to try it by completing the square. So the first thing I do is I get it into the form your x squareds plus your 4x equals the constant. So I'm going to add 13 to both sides, and I get x squared plus 4x equals 13. And so now I'm concentrating on the left hand side and saying if I want to complete this square, remember that I would take half of that 4x, which is 2. And then I'll square that 2 and I get 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 4 to that side. And I'm going to also add 4 to the other side because I have to keep it even. So 13 plus 4 is 17. And the reason is this now is easily factorable because it is a perfect square. That's going to be the quantity x plus 2 squared. And that is equal to 17. Now we'll review that last lesson of how we use our square root to solve that. Remember, what they did in order was they would have done the parentheses, so they added 2 and then they squared it. So we're going to undo that in reverse order of operations. I'm going to square root it, and square root it. When I square root an x plus 2 to the second, then I'm going to get just an x plus 2. And when I square root 17, I'm going to get 4.12, but it will be both positive and negative because I have two options for that square root. So now I'm basically set it up into two different equations. I have x plus 2 equals positive 4.12, and x plus 2 equals negative 4.12. So I solve by subtracting 2 from both sides, and I get x equals 2.12. Down here I subtract 2 from both sides, and I get x equals negative 6.12. That was completing the square. So one more time, let's try this. I'm trying to think of things that multiply to negative 10, but I had to get 8. I can't think of anything, and so I'm going to subtract or add that 10 to both sides to get the constant on the right hand side by itself. And then I'm going to complete the square with the right hand side. I look at this and I say, well, half of 8 is 4, so I'm going to square that, and I'm going to add that 16, which is what 4 squared is. X squared plus 8x plus 16 is equal to 10 plus 16, which is 26. Now, once again, this thing is an easily factorable because it's a perfect square. It'll be x plus 4 quantity squared, and that is equal to 26. I can then take the square root of both sides, and when I take x plus 4 squared, I of course get x plus 4. When I square root 26, I get 5.1. Remember, positive or negative. So now I have my two equations. I have x plus 4 equals 5.1, and I have x plus 4 equals negative 5.1. So I subtract 4 from both sides, and I get x equals 1.1. Subtract 4 from both sides, and I get x equals negative 9.1.